Hello, welcome to another drive-in double feature. I'm Ryan,
I'm Nathan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before I get into anything, we have a Patreon over there at patreon.com/drive-in double feature podcast. Just some, just really daring stuff over there. I mean, we're pushing some boundaries over there. I mean, just when they say don't go there, we go there.
Yeah, all our producers. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, don't do it. Don't release that. I do it anyway.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, we might even hear us say a swear word over there. We may.
It's uncensored.
Well, to be fair, sometimes it's uncensored here too. But
But that's
but
not supposed to be.
but yes, you can hear us all and really letting our hair down, having a good time over there. So
Hmm.
uh, please check us out over there. It's only $5 a month. It does not affect any regular content, but today, we're going to be talking about 1952's The Sniper, and that is directed by Edward Dmytryk. Probably like a real first of its kind movie, I would say, like, or one of the earlier ones, definitely. I mean, where it's just a man kind of being pushed to the edge, and he's trying to get retribution for something that, in his mind, he thinks he's been wronged for. Um,
Hmm.
and it really gives us a real look into like the real monsters of America, which of course is women. And
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I
so
really felt for this guy. In the end, it was like, redeem me. And I was like, you
yeah,
know what?
yeah,
He deserves
yeah. Nathan, what do you hate most about women?
it. I don't know. I can't answer that one.
Okay, yeah.
That's funny though.
Well,
um,
but no,
well,
that is the case though of this movie. Where I mean, obviously he's a really bad person, but he does have a complex against women where
mhm.
he feels that he's been wronged by a bunch of women, and he feels like he's been stomped on throughout his entire life, and the only way that he could finally get those frustrations out is to take it out on women with, as you can guess, a sniper rifle, and he becomes a serial killer of sorts.
Yeah, and like this pairing, this Tuesday Thursday pairing, actually ended up being better than I expected, or at least sorry, paired better than I expected. I thought the gun title, but this movie I think is an example of how to handle a bad character, how to handle a character. He's a murderer. He's stone cold. He'll just murder women that he knows. But you understand where
Yeah,
you understand, like, he even wants to get help, his psychology, and it's actually handled really well for 1952. I was really surprised by the age of this movie and what it handles.
I was gonna say that like this movie is so far than what I expected of how they would have handled a situation like this, and
Yeah. Does have some 50 isms, like, and we'll go into that a
yeah,
little bit later, but go ahead.
no, yeah, just as a whole, I mean, it's very much just like, wow, I can't believe like they treated this with any sort of seriousness or like any sort of like
Hmm.
uh sympathy for this character at all. And
Yeah, yeah.
because I mean, this character, it's played by Arthur Franz. His name is Edward Miller, and he used to be in jail. He's just getting out of a stint of jail time where he physically assaulted a woman,
Hmm.
and he's just trying to get out there and make it. I mean, he is trying like that somewhat to try to kind of fit into this world, and every avenue, he kind of feels like he's just being pushed aside, or like women are like just have it out for him in some sort of way. Like, he
Hmm.
accidentally bumps into a woman, and then this guy like gets into his face, like, hey, watch where you're going there, buddy. And then, or
Yeah,
it,
you could have hurt the lady. Hmm.
yeah. Or there's another one where he sees a woman and slapping her son, like,
Mhm.
because the son's like, I want to go home, and she just smacks them, and just like, you
So
always want to go,
hard.
you always want to go home.
And there's a lot of that in this movie. Way later, I love the scene where they're playing baseball and he catches the ball for the team. And he like passes it back, and the little boy's like, "Thank you, mister." And then like they're all fighting because I guess they can't decide who won. And then there's a little girl that played with them. He's like, "It's all your fault. You're the one who messed this up for us." Yells
Well,
at.
that's yeah, because he threw it during the game. So
Yeah,
instead of the kid chasing the ball and letting the other guys get a run, he's like
yeah,
he threw it. So yeah, that I just thought I know like the little girl is the one
of
who went like
course.
even little girls hate this man.
Yeah, I know. Um,
but I, but yeah, I mean, there's obviously something troubling him. Like I said, like when he sees the woman slapping her child, he immediately grabs his own face. So
Yeah, I think it's never explained overtly, but you definitely can see that it was his mother that really affected his feelings on women.
yeah, and that just kind of left a negative impression on women, and he feels like every woman is out to get him in some sort of way. And it really does give you little hints about how he has this inner turmoil with these sort of things. And he gets to the point where he's actually self-harming himself, where
Mm-hmm.
he goes home and he turns the stove on, and he actually puts his hand on the electric coil, and he starts the hot plate, and he just starts burning his own hand.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of what you said, like he goes to the doctors, and that where there is some 50 mentality in there in that scene,
Mm-hmm.
because like the doctor's like, what are you doing all the cooking for, man? Like, why don't you just get a woman? It's like, don't you know, if she did all the cooking, she's the one that would have burnt her hand, not you.
Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that. Also, the 50ism thing is like, I think it happens right off the bat. Is like this movie is kind of framed as like, don't let these sex fiends take over the streets. Like this is an actual problem, and like it plays more into like the noir crime side of it. Like this is a crime that could actually happen, and this is how the police would solve this crime. And I think that's a way to do it, is like, oh, we can follow the sniper, but we're also going to follow the cops. It's something I noticed a lot I actually watched through like a whole noir set recently, and actually about half of those movies, that's how they frame it. It's like, oh, well, this is how the cops look after the criminal. And most of those were Columbia Pictures movies, which is what company made this. So
Oh,
it,
okay,
it
that
kind
makes sense.
yeah, it kind of fits that mold. It's kind of the formula. This is better than a lot of those movies. So like this does it really well. Because I really like that scene where he goes to the doctor and he burns his hand. And it actually, he did it so he could get help. Like, he's
Yeah.
like, I burnt my hand so I could go and they could put me in the hospital. Because he was in a prison, and he was actually in a ward to help him with his help him psychologically, because he did go to prison for beating a woman with a bat, I guess.
Hmm.
But he just got released from prison and they just let him go, and he wants to go back to get some help, but nobody's willing. They just let him go.
Yeah, well, I mean, that they say that, like he said, even his doctor at the time at the prison was saying he should have more help, but they
Mm-hmm.
obviously they didn't want to keep him there because then he'd be the state's problem. So they just like, nah, he's cured, like send him on his way, type of thing.
Yeah.
And even in this scene, I mean, this is probably like the most sympathetic you'll see of this character, because
Mm-hmm.
he he's quite literally like asking for help. He's just like, I don't feel right, like my brain is not really working as good, and I would like some help, type of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I mean, even the doctors, they notice that, hey, it's pretty obvious he did this to himself, because if he would have just touched it, he wouldn't have a second-degree burn.
Yeah.
And it's very clear that he held this there. And they're like, well, we could send him up there. All they're going to do, though, is just hold him and send him on his way. So just go ahead and kick him out now. We need this room. And like they're pushing him out of the room, like, hey, get out of here, buddy. We got sick. We got people who actually need help, not like
Yeah,
you.
it's really messed up, and it all helps from the actor Arthur Franz, who's like, I think he does a really good job. He's really like doing a good job when he leaves there, just looking like sad. and he moves on. There's
Yeah.
a lot, because even the opening sequence we didn't get to talk about, where he's holding the gun at a woman, where he's holding the sniper, and we see the shot of the sniper. He's just aiming it right at her, and he's sweaty, and he looks like disheveled, and he plays it. He plays it really well.
Yeah, I mean that's probably like the biggest selling point of this movie for me is just his performance because he really goes out of his way to really humanize this character. It would be so easy to just make him like a cartoonish bad guy or like, oh, I'm just gonna kill you. Like, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
type of thing. And this time it makes him, as you said earlier. I mean, he's an awful, terrible person. He's sick in the head, but at the same time, we as an audience can understand his motivations.
exactly. We understand why he's at this point. And it makes it tragic when he asked for help and nobody was willing to give it to him. And that's where it's like, oh, I feel bad for this guy, even though he does kill women on the street.
Yeah, I mean, you feel
Yeah.
bad for him in the sense that he does write. I mean, later in the movie, he does write messages to the police saying, "Please stop me. I don't want to do
Yeah.
this." And so he's really just wanting somebody to put an end to this so he doesn't have to. But he's so compelled by his mental state that he has to do these acts, unfortunately. And
Yeah. But it also doesn't help that he's a really awful liar. he,
yeah, I mean,
he,
yeah,
he
I mean, he's obviously, yeah, he
I
doesn't
love
know. He's not the most socially aware guy.
No, I love when he's at the bar and like a woman walks up to him because he looks confident, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna give you my number," and he's like, "Yeah, I hurt my hand from building a bridge in Hawaii," and she's like, "Oh, what islands we're connecting?" And she's like, "What does he say?" He says, "Hawaii and
Like he keeps saying his name is. He uses the last name
alias." Yeah,
Burnside, and he's like, oh yeah. She's like, oh, are you a salesman? Everyone here's a salesman. He's like, no, I'm an engineer. I build things like bridges. Like I just built a bridge in Hawaii. And she's like, okay, well, what's the name of your bridge? The Burnside Bridge. She's like, huh? And then what islands does it connect? What island does it connect to? Oh, Burnside Island. And they're like, Burnside Island? Like that's
yeah.
not even like kind of Hawaiian.
Yeah, that's right. And she's like, "Oh, islands over there named like Wakakakiki," or she says
Or
like,
Oahu,
yeah,
yeah.
crap like that. And she's like, "You're pulling my leg, and I'm not gonna mess with any man that's pulling my leg." And she walks away, and of course, that gets him in a hissy, and
Yeah,
he ends up killing her. But
right.
that's not the biggest murder of the movie. The biggest one is of a nightclub singer who he delivers laundered clothes to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that I enjoyed that scene too because you can see like he's really beaming when he walks into
Hmm.
her apartment because he delivers dry cleaning and to her house. And
Hmm.
she's really nice to him. In his mind, this is probably like the nicest woman like he's ever met. And
Yes.
because
Yeah.
she's offering him a beer, offering him drinks and everything. And he's just like, oh man, like this is really nice. And he's helping her out. But then all of a sudden, she's like, oh, there's my jealous trumpet playing boyfriend. Like, you got to get out of here. And like,
Can you finish that beer on the porch?
yeah, she shoves him out the back door, and then he's just like, just freaks out about that whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. And so that ends up she ends up getting shot outside of a bar by him. He took some clothes from her, and that's part of like the building evidence. He's got the sniper rifle, and now he has this dress from her that he has to burn. Like he's literally like had a connection to her, but the police don't find anything. So I think this movie is great, but I think it stops from being like one of the best because of the cop stuff. I think the cop stuff takes away a little bit from the movie.
That's was going to be my main complaint as well. Is
Yeah.
that I think it turns into a little too procedural, and it,
Yes. Yeah.
it it turns into like a complete cop movie at that point where it just they chose them. just kind of sitting in there, like discussing the motives and discussing like where to find them, like who, like what type of suspect are they looking for.
Mm-hmm.
There was some enjoyable moments, though. I mean, there
It's
was
not bad.
the probably the funniest one though is like when they have a row of like of other criminals, like they do like the lineup, and they're just going through each of these people's crimes. It's like, oh, we got here Peter Eureka. He's like, I hear people saying that word Eureka. Are they talking about you? Huh?
Yeah, it's
Like,
like a stand-up roast.
yeah, he's just like roasting all of
Yeah.
these
And it's like saying
criminal
they're like
sex
sex
offenders.
crimes. Yeah, it's like, oh,
Yeah,
you're a peeper, right?
it's like, oh, you like to send disgusting messages to women, huh? It's like, you ever think about taking a gun and shooting them? And they're
Yeah.
like, what? No.
Yeah, it's so weird, this whole scene. It seems so unrealistic for a movie that's like it has stats. It brings up Albert Fish, who was a real serial killer. It's a very interesting way to take this movie. And that's, like I said, the 50s thing. It's definitely like it can't be like Taxi Driver, right? It can't be like we follow this guy. It had to be like, okay, we can't keep watching this guy. Let's make sure that we get the good guys in here. The good always has to win in the end.
No, yeah. I mean, so they have to kind of build up the cops a little bit. But,
Mhm.
there are some, like I said, there are some interesting bits, and they do kind of explain what they're looking for, and they kind of show that, like, okay, we're kind of looking for a guy with a history against women, definitely somebody, because they say that, they run through like, okay, well, if they're writing dirty messages, or they're any type of sexual acts with women, it's like they pretty much stay in that lane. They don't go
Mm.
and start like murdering women. So it's like we need to start with somebody that started out assaulting and work their way up, and that's kind of where they lead us to this character in a way, because he had like because that's the one thing from him burning his hand, like that's the one clue that they have, is that he's got a burnt hand, and he's probably
Mhm.
going to have some type of bandage on it.
Yeah, yeah. But they really don't. They kind of get clues. They kind of get there, but it's not until a final big scene whenever he's holding a sniper, is about to shoot a woman in the streets, and there's like, it's framed really great. There's like a giant tower in the background, and there's like I guess not a window cleaner, like a painter, like hanging off of it.
Mm-hmm.
um and he's like, there he is, the sniper, because the whole town is in fear of this guy. Like everybody's talking about him. Like
Yeah.
there's this guy going around just shooting women. And so like he points him out, and he hasn't even shot anyone. And I love his lines of like, I didn't even shoot her, why are you yelling at me? Good stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously he's got a warped perspective, so it's
Uh-huh.
just. But yeah, that guy that was yelling it out, like you said, he's really high up in the sky. He's
Mhm.
hanging from like a chimney or a smokestack or something like that,
Yeah,
and he's able to like shoot the guy dead from like that angle. And
yeah.
that's one other thing I really like about this movie too. You don't see every single one. The ones they do show, it's the people that like the first two, the how the camera is actually the POV of the gun.
Hmm.
And like you'll see one where like the second woman he killed was just a lady from the bar. She's just kind of walking from their house, and you're kind of look, it looks like you're looking in through the window, and then all of
Hmm.
a sudden you just see the glass break, and then she just falls dead on the floor.
Yeah, yeah, but it's really well done. And like I think
Yeah.
the first one's through a window, and you see the glass crack as it goes through.
What?
That,
Wait, she's walking by her poster, like her posters in like that glass
yeah,
case, and
that's
then
right. Yeah.
yeah, that so there is both of those do have glass in it.
Which is a really effective way to show it. Yeah, no, all of that is handled like really well. But yeah, I think that's some of the best bits of this movie, except
Yeah.
for after that last kill. Whenever he gets caught, there's like 10 minutes where it's just him running away. That's a little long, but
Mm,
I didn't mind it too much.
yeah. And I mean, there is some padding to this movie that could have been lost or something,
Yeah,
or they could have just filmed different scenes in here that would have
yeah,
make it flow a little better.
because there's like parts where the cops are talking, and like they get yelled at because one of them's the psychologist, and like, oh, get this psychologist out of here, we don't need any of that hooey fooey, stuff
Yeah.
like that.
exactly. So I mean, could it be better? Yeah, but I mean, all in all, though, I mean, I really like the ending scene too, where they do
Mhm.
finally catch him, and they just they do break down the door,
Mhm.
and he's just kind of cowering on the bed, and they're just like, okay, time to go, and he's just
He's just
softly crying.
Yeah, he's just crying. He's just like, finally, like I'm gonna get some help or something.
Yeah,
He's not even putting up a fight. It's sad. It's really interesting. I think that's the thing. I like it. It's like remarkable for its time. Like it's really surprising how well it handles this subject in 1952. So I just find it really interesting on that front. I think it's just a really neat movie.
yeah, definitely. It just probably one of the more surprising movies because I really wasn't expecting like a deep, a relatable. I don't want to say that, like uh, a sympathetic killer. I was not expecting
Yeah,
that,
I
and
agree.
I was kind of expecting like a sick, sadistic type of killer movie, or like somebody that just doesn't have a whole lot of motivation. She's like, I'm just crazy type of
Yeah,
thing, and
kind of like an early slasher movie,
it,
like something like that.
yeah. So I think this movie was handled pretty well, and I would definitely give this movie a recommend. It's a really solid movie. I mean, I enjoyed myself watching it, and I think other people should know about it.
I agree. More people should watch it. I highly recommend it. I think it's a really neat movie. I'm actually interested. What got you to pick this one?
Uh, I forget. I think I saw it on somebody else's watch list on Letterboxd, and I
Mhm.
was just like, oh, okay, like that looks like that'd be a pretty good pick for the show. So
Hey, it worked
there you
out.
go.
Cool.
Sometimes you just gotta roll the dice.
That's true. That's true. But then sometimes you get a what do name one of our movies, one of our bad movies. Uh,
Sometimes you get away with a gun.
that's true. Well, that wasn't a roll of the dice.
No, but it
Yeah,
happens. Sometimes we go in blind, and it's either really good, mid, or not very good. So
yeah. But this one was a good one.
this was a good pick. But that's going to do it for this week. So, Nathan, what are we going to be talking about next time?
All right, Ryan. Screw it. We're doing Pride of the Yankees.
Oh man, take me out to the ball game, indeed.
Yeah, it's baseball time. No, yeah, this was a recommendation from a viewer, Bradley. Bradley recommended this one, and we're keeping up with these recommendations. And so, if you want to recommend anything, be sure to email us. But yeah, he wanted us to cover the Pride of the Yankees, so let's do it.
Which you could see for free on
Oh,
Tubi, right?
yes, Tubi and Prime Video.
What better way to pair a baseball movie with something else that's an even uh, that's not related at all? So we're going to be talking about a movie called Pressure Point, and that one is streaming on the Criterion Channel right now.
All right, cool. Well, I'm
So,
excited to watch it.
thank you. Yes. So, and thank you so much for joining us this week. And like you said, if you have any thoughts and opinions, you can email us over at drivein-double-feature-podcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on X at DIDFpod. And once again, check out the Patreon at patreon.com/drivein-double-feature-podcast. But until next time.
Until next time.